Welcome to Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions on Wolf Spirit Radio, Ever Beyond Radio, and Studio 9 Jam on YouTube. With your host, Jessica Ariel Morocco, featuring JP as the voice of Andronicus. Please visit www.readingsbyrael.com, that's A-R-A-E-L.
From the future, by way of the past. I bought my ticket for the 15th century. We started moving through a hole in history.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Yes, and good afternoon, good evening to everybody in Radioland. Jessica's not quite here yet, so let's put on a little tune. Now, what did I get? I got some new tunes today, and actually had some, put some on the desktop there. If I can only find them. Where were they? But at least... Well, let's have some bangles while we're waiting. Okay, so, and here we have the star of the show, Jessica Ariel Morocco. Actually, only you can hear the echo, and everybody else can.
Does that formally make me one of the Hitchhiker's Guides to the Universe?
You certainly are a guide to the universe. Whether you be guiding hitchhikers or otherwise, or genuine seekers, that's what they say, isn't it? Genuine seekers only required. Genuine art students over 21. So, good afternoon. How are you? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. How are you?
Well, I'm still not quite 100%. I'm about sort of 75 to 80%. I've taken off the dressing on my hand, and it's hard to pick things up at the moment. But I'm still able to perform and function and stuff like that. So it's just lucky that the injury is kind of around where I'm holding the mouse, but not on it. So it means that I've been able to use a mouse all week, which is like my livelihood. So that's all right. So all is okay. I'm coping with whatever I'm having to deal with, really, basically. So that's that. And hopefully you're not having to deal with any serious injuries yourself.
No, I haven't. But it's all over the Facebook group about your hand, and I think you made a mention that you were talking about Meetis and how Meetis in one of the transmissions. Yeah. You had mentioned something about, just to test his immortality, he just kept cutting his hand. Did he actually? Yeah, I'm trying to remember the story.
I don't think he actually did, but I just said it as a sort of, I can't remember the film where there was a group of people who realized that they're immortal. Very much like Groundhog Day, he just goes off and drives into a wall just to see what it's like. That's what happens when you're immortal. You can do stuff like that. You'd think. Anyway, so I'm not immortal. I tear very easily, and my body is very unhappy about that sort of situation. So I'm not going to do that to it again.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, we have to be careful, and I tend to go off in my own little world. I've been known to do that since I was a kid, and that's what gets you in trouble because you're not paying attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
And it can
I was very focused. I have to say I was very mindful, but I was really tired. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I've been up all night. And I just thought, I guess I'll just get a bit more wood. And then I needed the blade, and then I had changed the blade, and I was like just about, just fired out for the first time, and it just cut my hand right open.
If this happens again, then we're going to have to take all the tools away from you.
Well, you're just going to have to send people to cut my wood for me. There we go. That would be much easier. So
we have a great show for today.
Yeah, what's going on?
Oh, well, we have Keith Roberts is going to be joining us today from Ground Control on Revolution Radio.
Oh,
And he's a wonderful guy. He's just so positive, and, he's an experiencer and has a lot of interesting insight, and he's always very welcoming to anyone that listens in. I think you can kind of just jump in and get in a conversation live on the radio with him and other people. And I know Viking and Conrad are also going to be here later on in the show, and they're going to contribute all of their insights of what's going on right now. And I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. We have some interesting stuff in the transmissions. Here again, the intensity has not stopped. So just when I think, well, it's going to go a little easier, and then there's just some other things that came up this week that I had to address, and I talked a bit with Rhodan about it, as well as Andronicus. Andronicus kind of surprised me with a few things that I didn't know he did. And we have a new transmission from someone by the name of Vulcan. And kind of has a voice like Viking. So, I don't know, I was going to see if Viking was around to read that one for us, but we'll wait until later on in the show and see what happens from there.
I just smoked 20.
Smoke 20 cigarettes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, everyone has their own tone resonance. I mean, if we can't get Viking to do it, we'll do, I don't know, it's not echoey at all. It's just deeper. It's deeper in tone. So, but either way, JP, if you're up for it, then we'll have you do it.
Oh yeah, I can do deeper. Let me see if I can get the deeper box working.
Okay.
It's actually the same as Eric. But let's just see. Hang on.
So, you also sent me something about the Voynich.
Yeah, how about this?
How about
It's
that?
too echoey.
No, isn't it no echo? Is there a...
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right? Hello. Hi. The nature of soul is love.
That sounds like it. Yeah, that's about it. Okay. So keep that thought and that tone. All right.
Okay, I got that.
Yeah, you pulled out you said that the Russians had decoded it. Well, Andronicus has something to say about that. I asked him about it, and since he was the author of it, you'll be interested to hear what he has to say in response to this. Also as a group, next week after our show, we will be doing our Andronicus Zoom gathering, which means we can have as many people as we want after the show, and everyone gets to meet each other. It's kind of, to say hello. People have any thoughts they want to share, and you can see who's a participant in our private Facebook group. All are welcome that are part of the group and are interested in discussing things related to Andronicus. And consciousness, of course, is a variety. We don't stick to any one particular topic. And also, I just want to tell people that Charlbain, or as we know her as Ches, has been doing some wonderful work with the website, Facebook, and also she started creating some of these memes. She's created logos. She's amazing. Very, very fantastic work.
I love all these meme quotes she's doing from Andronicus and stuff. That's great.
Yeah.
None from Meetis yet. I've noticed.
Yeah, no, actually the Black Dahlia was from Meetis.
Oh, right. Well, in that case,
Yeah.
We're all good.
There was a Andronicus one, then we also had one from the pesky Aldebrons, talking about, you called them the pesky Acadians. And
Everybody's got their pesky.
yeah. Well, you're coining everyone. So, we're just following your lead here. JP, you seem to have a term for everything. And it's good. It's good because then we can kind of pinpoint and, just like with one or two words, you kind of get a feel of their nature. So,
Well, it's always good to get a handle on things, and some people you can't say words because they're like not politically correct or something. But anyway, I'm not politically correct. I like to say what I feel.
Yeah, and well, I don't know if you really go off on any extreme, but I think within a few words you're very descriptive and have a sense and feel of what they're all about, and within a few words you're able to pinpoint their nature. Kind of like doing the rays, but it's a little bit more, just by calling them pesky. And there was the thing that you said about when we channeled, Amy and I had talked about the Aldebarans, you kind of went back and forth. You said something about the bittyness or something.
The bittiness
of the conversation.
Well, just like a little phrase here and a little phrase there. It's it'd be nice to just bring it all together in one and read it as one.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
It has to be edited.
Yeah, it needs some editing before you do it. That's right.
There is an essence of even their tone of the way that they communicated that was a little bitty, I suppose, as well. So that's the way I took it.
Yeah. What do you mean, like slightly disconnected and discombobulated?
Yeah, just jumping into something and then stepping out and kind of little, this has to be done or that has to be done, and sort of little comments, but not following through but then they come up with this terminology, which is something that they recognize, and we were just trying to figure out what it meant, and it was really interesting because Ches was listening to the last one and trying to get into the feel of Aldebaran when she was putting together the phrase of the Acadians, and how it talks about the Xylon septing. And then she said that there was the Zytag washing, and she thought that had to do with scalar. And I said, what, I think you're right. It looked like it was a definition for scalar, the way she described it was weather patterning and other things that it does. So there were so many different terms that came out that I don't typically get from the others that I channel. And it sounded kind of funny. And maybe it was my interpretation of the way I wrote it, but that's the way it sounded to me, and that was the best way I could write it. But, and we missed, like I said, a whole bunch of all this terminology, and it was just gone, completely wiped out off the computer. So maybe it might reappear at some juncture. Who knows?
You may find yourself on the timeline where it's there back again. The thing about terminology is that the Nazis had an enormous scientific repertoire, and after the war, when they were paper clipping everything, they discovered that they had to create more than 750,000. That's 750,000 new scientific terms from their research. So and since I always say there's a connection between the Aldebarans and Germans that there's a technical language that they like. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then. That kind of pieces it together. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because we were trying to figure out what was going on. It was almost like she was trying to educate us in regard to the terminology, but it was almost like it sounded really weird, and also she was using different names for elements, and I'm not really quite sure which element she was referring to.
Yeah,
so,
like in Die Glocke, when I read that, they called what we call red mercury vril. That was the name that they had for the element.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we'll learn some things, and maybe I'm wondering if there's a crossover too from their terminology that they came up with, if it does match some of the stuff that I got from Aldebaran. That would be interesting. And, maybe the words would be different. I don't know.
Yeah, the name of this fellow that they spoke to in the 40s was Anquil. Anquil, the
well, that would be the Aquilans.
Oh. Well, he's something like Anquil, but Aquilans. Is that an Aldebaran group?
We need Patty Broussard to talk about it's regarding the Elven and the Aquilans war, the Elven and Aquilin war that happened on this planet before the human race was here. I believe it happened here, but it predates us. And the Aquilans are the octopus species that you see. And what they did was, yeah, and what they did was they're the ones that took the Elven and then added the mutagenic that and as well as then merged the DNA between the Elven and the Fae. And the Fae are like, I won't say hive mind, but they think as a collective, and the Elven think individually like us. And so they put, according to what Patty says in her recollection, they put both Elven and Fae together, and then added the mutagenic, and that's what created the Jinn. Because you have a being that is both a collective thinker as well as an individual thinker, which creates a sort of madness. You know what I mean? It's just like, who you're listening to, or, it create, and then the mutagenic made them like, more aggressive and angry. So, she said that's where they came from. And that resonates with me. That seems like a truth to me, because the Jinn are very, very powerful. They're not something that you would tamper with, but they do seem to have this crazed personality that you don't want to get on their bad side. And the Pixie Fae are mischief, so that, you could see that element of mischief in them, getting into things that they shouldn't get into, but yet, having the stature of an Elven, large. I don't know. I mean, other people might have different philosophies, but I thought Patty's story seemed to resonate with what I know, and also a lot of what she says about Tiamat, which is something that comes up through Vulcan that we're going to read.
Tiamat, world famous. Now, who was I talking to last night? I was talking to Kahlen, Kahlen Nezu, and I think he's probably listening just now, because he's just kind of joined the family, as it were, and he's a walk-in from Arcturus, and has been here for since 1970, 47, and he's doing the basically, he's very much like a brother for me. I'm looking at his rays. He's got exactly the same rays as me, but his story is a lot more horrendous. He's had a lot of very difficult times in his life. So, so very interesting to get to meet him. We did a couple of shows with him yesterday because Audrey didn't turn up. So, you'll do. So we had a nice chat.
Remember the Arcturians came in a long time ago.
Yeah, well, isn't
with Andronicus, they were on planet Zephyron, I believe, on the departure of Zephyron when they started to get destroyed after Aldebaran showed up, and the Lucido, which were the Greys, and there were the lizards, the Sleetaran, and the Vincala. So in the end, he's leaving, and he sees that there's still a species left, as he takes I think he takes Ketron and everyone on the ship with him, and he doesn't want to take the Titans with him, but he feels like he can't leave them behind, and then he realizes the Arcturians are behind, and they look like elementals at that time. Do you remember that?
But that was a very long time ago in our terms, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of stories have come through since then.
So, well, I mean, I think, and also he was talking Now, somebody was talking. Who was talking about it? Sure, it was him talking about a race from Vega who were not good, who were not benevolent. And I've got the feeling that they were probably infested with the AI. We were talking about, this is very much like Star Trek universe, that, there's like the Vulcans who are kind of benevolent, and then there's the Romulans who look very much like the Vulcans who are not benevolent. And I think, there's that sort of thing. But really the problem with the reptilians is that the reptilians are already the Borg. It's like we were introduced to the reptilians and it's the Klingons, and then we were introduced to the Borg, there is no, but actually in reality they're the same force. We're dealing with the same force, but we had to be introduced to them slowly, first the lizard side and then the AI side. So, this is, an interesting turnout that, these beings really exist in the universe and more.
Yeah, they do, and of course everyone has different names for them. To my knowledge, like the Siddharthans are by Vega, and the ones that I've dealt with in Vega have been very, very pleasant. They're the ones that that introduced Buddha, introduced Shiva, introduced a lot of the ancient Hinduism.
And these are the higher dimensional guys.
Yeah, and the ones that kind of were overseeing a lot that happened in the universe and helping Andronicus to grow. And I believe Shiva was helping him to grow and learn. And remember there was Gupta.
There was Gupta, who seemed really nice, and then suddenly went mad. Went completely insane and went off to some other universe. I was like, whatever happened to Gupta? Maybe we could do a whole series. Whatever happened to Gupta?
I think Gupta is incarnated. We figured that out, but I can't say who I believe it is. But he's a person of caring and wanting to help out others. So it turned out well in the end.
But
that's
I
never discussed it with him that he was a Gupta, so I just don't feel the liberty to share it. But it's all good. It's very good. We'll just leave it at that.
Let's just leave it at that. So, shall we get into our readings today?
Yes.
Or do you have any more announcements? Do you have another announcement?
Another announcement? No, just like I said, reminding everyone next week's a Zoom group. If you were thinking of joining us, love to meet you and get to say hi in person. So, if you're able to join us, please do. And other than that, let's move on and let me ask which one they want me to read first. Andronicus is first.
How did I guess?
Since it's his show.
I can tell you a tale about a future event. One you will remember forever. I was instrumental in helping. The year 3046, a year when humanity lost hope, it is true. They held on the life with breath at a standstill. I often wonder about the tenacity of your race. With so few abilities beside your mind, you seem to wield life from nothing but essence, electromagnetic light, molecules, the bending of time, the quarters of fabric crafted by matter. So you see, it's complex, really. I have been known to boast, but it's true. All of these things are elementary for me. If I say I can reach the stratosphere with my finger, I will prove to you I can. I can hold the elements in my finger and allow you to sense it, feel it, and know it as I do. Some call me arrogant. I can spin a planet on my finger, and yet some still dare to mock me. It is me who is arrogant, or them? Oh, is it me who is arrogant, or them?
You don't seem to be yourself today, Andronicus. Maybe a little bit testy or irritated. Your civilization is quite... Oh, this is what he says.
Your civilization is quite proud and boastful. Your scientists believe they have captured the secrets of the universe, and your biologists have the nerve to alter life as if it was their playroom, to distort and foul the very gifts of essence they were told to embrace with love. I feel angered by it all. What will it take for them to notice that they stand on the edge of the pit that leads to nowhere? I will observe them as they step in by their own volition. If we do not give them consent to sequester a trip to off-world locations, this is where they go.
But this has been going on for some time now, hasn't it? What makes you so angry about it now?
There's many things that get me angry. See? Look, the plant life, the children, the cries of the poor, poisoned water. For example, I visited a lab as if I came through the walls. They stood there with their sanitized protective gear. I challenged them, but they said not a word, as if I was invisible. I stood before a man, quite proud in his learning. He lifted his eyes to challenge me and berate my presence. I said nothing. The element in his hand began to boil from my anger, and he dropped it to the ground. I then entered his mind, and the room seemed unstable. At that point, his arrogance began to depart. Then, I changed the entire lab into its own matrix apart from the world. That is where they will be until they stop with their desires to further harm the planet. I will not set them free unless they depart from this madness and reckless actions on the planet.
Have you done this to other labs and places of research with intent, who had intent to harm the planet?
Yeah, but there are so many who are guilty.
Well, what about CERN?
Well, Shiva's there since they summoned him and accused him of participating in their experiments. He is collecting souls. There's nothing more to be said about it. Don't venture there unless I tell you to.
Now that we're talking about it, last night I received a call from a friend who was tormented by his dreams. It went on for 2 hours before he contacted me. When I looked, there were 3 bunk beds, all with dark green military blankets on them. There was an evil man, fully possessed by an entity and projecting or broadcasting a hellacious vision of human torture. Some type of destructive, crushing apparatus that was killing humans. He was able to enter the dreamscape of humanity to project such horrific events. When I searched further, he was morphing and changing genders from male to female. And then I could see him and hear him speak, and I recognized that he was a Russian military soldier in a submarine off the East Coast. I removed the entity and the nightmare stopped. My question is, why are they here?
It's your government not caring for their people. They're all in a state of madness and disregard for what is truly happening.
Can this be resolved? We need some peace.
Yes, of course. It's the release of the systems which are causing some to react with the notion of their elimination. We are watching over it.
The other day I saw Uranus in a rage. He came out from his space in the galaxy. I don't know what stirred him or brought him to such an unreasonable state of mind. And then right before me I saw Rhodan reach over, and he pushed him down into a large piece of rock, and he was then buried, but safe. It was as if he had awakened, much like Triton did, out of a deep sleep and disrupted harshly, where they came out fighting.
Hang on. Oh, yeah. You're correct. He does not have the sense to observe before reacting. We all needed to learn this. Fortunately, we caught it on time, and he will be brought back gently.
Another question. I see that the Russian mathematicians claim to have broken the code on the Voynich transcript. This was your writings.
The ones who open it up will be surprised what they have found. They will wish their hearts were pure, because there is something waiting for them upon the opening. This is the arrogance at work indeed. Much will be learned in this endeavor. I will allow them to peer in, but their hearts will determine if they get out. Within the book holds some mysteries of life. Only the pure in heart will be able to know and understand it.
Lastly, I would like to know what happens to humanity in 3046. Can you tell me?
It's not time to bring the future into the present yet, as we're resolving the past at this time. Once the past is resolved, the awakening can be more universal. This is necessary to go to the next step. We travel in purpose and in light. Without purpose, you will see looping, continual experiences that have no resolution or conclusion. Be of purpose now to help one another. See yourself as a group with intent and purpose of resolution to the past, and this will allow all of you to step into the future. Be of peace, love, and light, and hold on to the highest intention for humanity. Andronicus. So yeah, a bit moody, but so what's this?
Which part?
Well, I'm looking at there was a bit of gossip, you know. It's a bit of like Rhodan and Conrad, and you know, it's like stuff going on.
Well, there was. I had a vision of Uranus coming out of stepping away from the planet and coming out, and he came out in force, like he was ready to go into battle. And as I was watching, it was really intimidating, actually. I was watching him do that, and I was like, well, I don't know what exactly is going on, but it was very similar to Conrad, and Conrad wakes up and he's like, you ever hear the saying, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed? Well, that's the way that these guys are. It's they've been sleeping for so long, and so when they're awakened in the wrong way, they immediately are alarmed. And so then I saw Rhodan reach over and kind of gently push him down, and it looked like he pushed him right into this big slab of stone. I mean, it wasn't really a slab; it was just like maybe a mountain. You know what I mean? Just pushed him right down in there, and
yeah,
kind of lulled him to
chill out
sleep.
for a while, you know.
Yeah. And like, it wasn't disrespectful. He was just kind of, just lulling him back to sleep, but it looked kind of odd the way it happened. And so, I knew that something was going on here. And then, and then there's just a few series of events where I'm picking up, these people who are projecting and broadcasting. Somehow some people have these broadcasting abilities, and if they're really what they do is these other, whether it's the Draconians or the Reptilians or the Greys, I don't know who's doing it, but they're seeing these people that have this broadcasting ability, and then they're making their lives miserable. So then they begin to project this misery out to everyone else. And you don't know where that energy's coming from, and it's coming from a human or some humans, but why they have the broadcasting ability, I don't know. And I've asked that maybe, I recently told someone, you're really unhappy and you're broadcasting, and if you could please be mindful of that because it's affecting others in a negative way. And, so even if they won't create a balance for themselves, maybe it will be a way that they can try to gain control of it themselves, for others.
So that's a really interesting thing. Shari Edwards did a show quite a few months ago, but I play it over again because it's called How to Deal with Difficult People. And one of the issues is that the person who was talking realized that she was difficult, and that she would broadcast that difficulty all around her. Yeah. Until one day, one of her office mates confronted her and said, look, when you lose something, what you do is unusual. What you do is you go around and you swear and you cuss, and, you're just making a real drama of it all. And we're all trying to get on with our work. So, she wasn't aware of what she was broadcasting. And right. I would say that most of us don't know what we're broadcasting. I've been learning about broadcasting, it's like for the past 5 years, And, I know what it's like to broadcast and when it's not to broadcast. It's quite an interesting thing. Just time, like, you switch off. And I imagine you do after, having done it for so long. That you know that there's a feeling that you're talking to loads of people and there's a feeling that there's nobody listening,
Yeah, that there's a way to take the energy. And the whole key here is to not hold on to that energy and to keep playing it like a broken record. You have to do something with that energy. And this goes for everyone, especially as you start to awaken. Then you get into a more universal consciousness. And then at that moment, you have a really bad day or something like that, and you start to broadcast some of that stuff out. So you have to be mindful of that. And we want to work on the ascension. People are trying to work on the ascension, but you have to be mindful that you can be a positive support of it, or you could be one that holds people back because you're creating a field. And it's just, it's not, hey, making you responsible for this, but in some way you should be aware that you're capable of doing that. And I had to, they taught me this a while ago, that I need to be careful and mindful. And what I do is I'll create something where I'll take the energy and just kind of transmute it some way, or ask to dissipate it, whether it's in an effort of forgiveness or seeing that, some of these things, if I were to be in a higher place, I'd look down and say, that's just really not worth my energy, take my energy rather and do something better with it. So, because our energy is very powerful, and let's utilize it correctly. And then some people actually have attachments or other things that are stepped in and have completely overridden their free will. And if they have that broadcasting quality, we have a problem, a dilemma like this situation here, where they were actually getting into the dreamscapes of people. So, the people, that they're unhappy or whatever, but, and then there's certain entities, they know that they're going to have to depart from the planet, and they're kicking and screaming the whole way out. And so we have to notice that as well, and not get affected or attached to it, and allow them to just, if our attention, allows them a stage to perform, and if we don't give them that attention, then there's nothing left for them to do. So they can't affect us that way. It's just something to be mindful of.
Mindful indeed. Yes. Now, this fellow who was in the Russian submarine, that was a weird thing.
That was weird.
Yeah. So, was this like a soldier who was doing? I mean, we know about remote viewing soldiers, right? That's we know that. And so, was this Russian soldier in turn possessed by some entity while he was remote viewing Americans in America?
Yes.
Is that what was going on there?
There was definitely some type of entity. I couldn't identify which one it was. The information I picked up was he was highly psychic. He was extremely angry, like angry on a level you can't imagine. It felt like he was cut off from his family. It felt like he was frustrated because he didn't, I think his sexual orientation was stifled. I think he had feelings. I think he was, couldn't express that he was gay or something. There was something going on there too. There was something going on about him being, which is, people need to be free to be who they are. And in this, experience, I think he wasn't allowed to. He felt cut off from everyone. He felt trapped, probably in the submarine. So all of these emotions I was picking up from him, but what he did was he was actually launching these ideas of humans just being crushed in some kind of, large a bin of some sort. I don't know any other way to say it. And then just sort of the bodies were being caught in this space. And he was so antisocial, so angry that I knew that. I said, this, humans you typically won't go this far. So I knew it was something else that had gotten into his consciousness. And the problem is he was they're right on the East Coast over here. And the government, everyone can say whatever they want, but I know for sure that they're there. And when the things are going on, I pick it up. And I know, so maybe this is a tactic. Maybe they're trained to do this, to actually go into the dreamscape and create fear. And they target certain people that also are broadcasters. So, who I don't really know the whole full dynamic and the structure of it other than what I'm seeing. But it is upsetting. That's probably what I can say. And I asked them to remove the entity, whatever it was, and they did, and it stopped. So, anyhow. I want to get upset about it. I'm just trying to release that energy.
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't have to be here.
Let's clear that energy for the start, because there's, like you say, these energies are being cleared, and like what we discovered, a couple of years back, is that the gods use us as bait. As it were, and you more than myself, but basically to draw out these evil guys who like nothing more than a beautiful woman, and it kind of but they don't tell you. Our friends up there don't inform you that that's what's happening. It's kind of, because it's a kind of double blind. You have to be, you have to respond in your authentic way. You can't be aware that you're, it's them and they're going to come and get me soon, and then bam, oh shit. But, there's more of you're just pushed into these situations. And I was going to talk about one's intuition, because say you were talking about these beings are being pulled off the planet, and we have to step out of the way. This is one of those days that you would have to turn left instead of turning right, just because you felt like turning left. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
I'm finding that the bad ones are starting to avoid me. Cause they know, I think they're figuring out that, it's almost like someone's there waiting for them. If they do anything they're not supposed to do.
That's right. And in a way, that's a kind of protection for you. So that's kind of nice to know, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Like, I don't, of course this is not for the average person, and if a person's unhappy or angry or whatever, I mean, that's just the human stuff. We're not talking about that. It's the really, really dark ones that want to abduct, or they want to do some really bad stuff. And, they're having trouble doing that around me these days. And I'm also asking them, everyone that's within my circle that I know or I get to know, and if you don't know me, please connect with me. But, I try to, everyone that I know, I try to create this nice little bubble where if anything, is going after them, that I ask that they get protected. And, it's, in some cases, it's easier than others, but, I do have that at my disposal, and I try, that's what it's for, is to help us during this time where there's this kind of these beings are kind of being separated out, separating the chaff from the wheat, and, kind of being brought where they need to go. So anyhow.
Shall we move on to Rhodan? I'm still observing and watching what is happening on your planet. At times, I reveal things to you that help you understand the inner workings of things. So many people, but only a few directing the rest. One at a time, each system is shutting down, and a void or space in between where souls find a moment of liberation, freedom from the group mind disconnect.
I understand that we need to separate from these control systems in a way that causes least disruptions. However, How can we move it along in a more rapid pace?
You can remove yourself from most of the control systems through self-process or journey of the soul. Each person can go within, contemplate the wondrous mysteries of life, see themselves in a primordial means, untampered and untouched by the malignant contaminations of intrusive species, untampered, loved, innocent, free, unentangled by strife, war, or carnal aggression. You can restore this essence from within, and I will help humanity to find this within. Many of you judge others and yourselves. It is the malignancy within that makes humanity in a state of rooting things out. Begin with yourself. Don't go outside of yourself. This requires another remedy. Remember to always go within. Herein lies the secrets of your soul, the mysteries of humanity, the truth of the constellations, the memory of your essence of soul existence. The truth of who, what you are is molecular. The molecules around you hold memory. Your minuscule aspects of molecular structure, coupled with the infinite electrons triggered by your mind, provide a light so brilliant, more brilliant than the sun to us. It is the spark of the origin of all living things here. That is your true connection to the One, or the true God Source. I see that there are many who claim to be the One, the original and one Source. It is not true, but they will have to face and reconcile their actions in time. Meanwhile, do as I say, find your own truth and knowing. Let no one else stand in the way of it. Don't allow a spouse, a child, an occupation or relative to persuade you not to search for your truth. Don't lose this grand opportunity to the journey of the soul. Don't find excuses to avoid this process, and yet don't see it as an unscalable mountain that you must climb. Imagine the journey where you step into an unknown forest. The first day you walk down a shallow path. You return the following week, and as you walk down the path you will notice more detail. You begin to smell the green plants and the dirt below your feet, but still continue to walk that path. The following week, you go down another path. Like the first time you journey, but nothing magnificent happens. Aside from your breath, you notice you are breathing deeper and taking in the oxygen-rich air. You feel rejuvenated and might have a bit of spring in your step. The following week, you walk down the second path and walk further. You say, I feel younger. My feet enjoy the trail. The mushrooms, the coloured leaves have patterns. The sun filters through and you begin to lift a bit from the earth. Although your feet are touching the ground, you rise and touch the sun and feel like you can scale to the top leaves of the trees. The next week, you walk down the first path and see some broken branches, some new growth, some berries, and the trees begin to sing in your mind. A frequency. You breathe, and you're lifted. The trees are at peace with your presence and share their essence with you.
Do you bring a friend with you or always go alone?
This is your own journey at times. It's important you go alone in the beginning. Each should have their own journey. Those who cannot be alone and seek within are obstructing and hiding from their own truths. They are still in the garden, cloaking themselves from primordial space of innocence and love.
Please go on and tell me what happens next.
The next time you go in, you enter where no one else is there. You bring a blanket and sit by a tree and take in the sounds of the forest. Close your eyes and see yourself in primordial space. The trees will help you journey there. The time is coming for you to regain your understanding and memory. You may find that you change some things. If you want to change the outside world, you must do it from within. I'll leave you with this. Speak always with truth and love. The truth at times can be harsh, but tempered with love can cut through much pain in the end result. I know you have struggled over this. I know that people of your past have not received your truth well. But you are learning to come to a place of understanding that will far eclipse those things that have held you back. Much is coming. You are the change you have all been waiting for. Visit that place of journey and love.
So what do you think?
No, it's an unusual one for Rhodan. You know, kind of have an interest. You know, he's normally running around commanding everybody and what's this and all that. This is, you know, how to journey within the Rhodan way. The way of Odin.
The way of Odin.
Is it not?
It is.
Ah-di-da-di-da. Yes. Wow. Okay, should we go on?
Let's go to Vulcan.
Right. Right. Need the sound of a volcano.
I want to just mention that when Vulcan knew me, I was a male. I was his brother.
Oh, sorry, say again?
I said I wanted to just say that when I met Vulcan, when I knew Vulcan, I was a male. I was his brother.
Right. Okay. So let's try. Ready? So I'm just looking down my. Let's try number 3, lightning. Number 3, lightning.
I'm observing you now from long ago. You are much different from our stay on Tiamat. You know, I remember you well. You were my brother. What happened? Oh, hang on. Aren't you supposed to be saying this?
What happened during the war on Tiamat?
It was a difficult war. So much confusion, and we were not considering the attack. Our guard was fully down. That will never happen again. You escaped to find others to assist. You were searching for our allies. In the process, you were followed, and they chased you across time and space until you arrived on this planet. I pulled at you to return, but you were too far out of reach. We regained our sovereignty, but many of you were missing. At least 5 that we know about landed on Earth. You waited, and then took your vessels and hid them deep within the caverns, and retired for sleep, awaiting our call. You were distraught beyond belief. I could not detain you, and yet I felt you suffered the most. It was your first separation from us. We arrived to see you in your chamber. I couldn't bear to look at you. I saw your pain as you lay there. I spoke to you in song, and you responded. The Great One told me you must stay on the planet to serve. You had a higher court of order to uphold. Without purpose, I became angry. I said within my heart, why can't it return to what it was, the way we were? Why am I standing over my brother, who was to become a weaker species in many ways? Why did you not contend this order to break free from submission and venture as I did? I felt betrayed, as if you no longer belonged with us. You were willing to abandon our ways and merge with them, the very ones who collided with us. I broke the earth, the stone cracked and gave forth water, and yet you did not listen. And then I did it. I stood close to the stasis chamber and spoke to you again. My brother, since you chose to help those who did not allow us our peace, I will assist you into this life as you chose. Today I will take from you your breath, so you can pass your essence into another form. I will further turn from you and no longer see you as my brother. I warn you to never cross my path again. These are the words I so regret. Upon returning to this planet, I hid amongst the Lemurians by the great Shasta mountain. My heart will bleed because I cannot find you as I had cast you off. And in my desperation, I find another lost brother, Ketron. He assists me to my place of peace. But you still lay there in my mind upon the stasis chamber lifeless. I want to awake you, but I dare not. I thought, if I do, will you forgive me? I don't want you to answer me now. I want you to think about what I said.
Then the door closed and a large stone door was shut and Vulcan was gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was intense.
Yeah, I cried.
So what's the story going on there?
Yeah, I cried because I remember it. And I actually have a memory of him standing over, and it was like I couldn't speak. I had an awareness that he was standing over me. And I couldn't, it's like I wanted to yell, because I saw him starting to walk off, and I wanted to yell, don't leave me here. And for whatever reason, it was like he couldn't hear me or didn't acknowledge me, and he thought that I had betrayed him. And
so right, so this, today I will take from you your breath so you can pass your essence into another form. He's going to kill you, right?
he kills me.
Yeah.
He kills me because he knew that I was kind of locked into having to fulfill this, whatever I was supposed to do here. And this happened way before, of course, this lifetime. So he didn't understand it. At some point I do go and visit and see what Tiamat was like. It was very emotional for me. It was pleasant. It wasn't warlike at all, and it was definitely like a family. But it was like I think that was like an innocence lost. And there were times when I've seen myself as a male with like strawberry blonde hair. It's kind of blonde, a little bit more blonde, but and I just, it kind of like this lost feeling because of the big separation and the war. And even being disconnected from the others that came over here sort of created an isolation. So, and I guess there was a divine order in it, but he didn't fully understand it, and he kind of went off and sort of did his own thing. But they got everything in order over in Tiamat. So, I think I don't know, I did see him over in Shasta for some reason, and I'm thinking that it was Ketron that he was connecting with. So that's all I know for now. I'm still waiting. Waiting to remember more.
So yeah, very interesting idea. I mean, that you were a guy in some lives. Did you start out as a guy?
I don't.
Have things changed?
It's changed. Well, in this life,
no, you've changed it.
Born as a female, but many of my lives I was female. So I have seen myself as a male, like a warrior male, in a few lifetimes. And well, during the Titan times I was a female. But I think this predates, but I'm not sure which one actually predates it. It's hard to tell, but we've all kind of been both.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder. Just wonder what you'd be like as a male. Anyway. Anyhow. Shall we, so that was Vulcan, who sort of comes in, makes a speech and then leaves. Exit stage right there.
Yeah.
He'll be back, I imagine.
I think so too. I think he's, the impression that I got is the reason why Rhodan is sort of more helping us along in our journeys rather than talking about overseeing everything is that I think he's going to be delegating some of his work to Vulcan. And I think that's why Vulcan enters, but he wanted to have this conversation with me first, and I chose to write it down and share it with everyone.
You see.
It's more of a personal story, but it does give a little bit of a background of what happened and what he had to say about it.
So, should we do a tune first and then...
Well, we have Meetis.
Or should we do Meetis and then a tune? Let's do Meetis and a tune.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get all the tunes on. Hello, my lovely flower. How fare thee, my dove? 'Tis such a wonderful morn. I heard the birds singing so delightfully, so I hopped out of my slumber and dashed out of the door in my bare feet. I stretched and reached the sky with my arms while my neighbours giggled. I think the widow fancies me. She always gives me a spot of tea and a butter biscuit. I see her churn the butter from the daily farm. They have such fragrant plants of mingled herbs and plants for the dairy cows. The grasses are so sweet and scented with tarragon and yellow flowers. The Cornish maiden arrived, and we all went to meet her yesterday. I brought her a bouquet from that I gathered from the daily farm. I believe I made her blush. Of course, she was intended to dine with the finest of families, but I know she fancied me over them. Her skin was like fine silk, and her eyes were soft, a light brown. There was nothing extraordinary about her, other than she had a purity about her, like a virgin priestess never seen by a man. I didn't imagine she was so sheltered that my flirtation made her blood surge. She looked away and I could see her gasp her breath. Then she giggled.
Then Meetis looked down at his feet and said,
I should put on my finest stockings and cover these barbarous feet. It is important I tidy up a bit and present myself as a gentleman. Be wonderful to dance and mingle a bit.
Meetis, are you off to break another heart?
Me? I never break their hearts. I just want them to remember me. I love to be loved. Everyone likes it a bit. It makes one feel special. Like they're the only person in the room. Like a special cloud in the sky. How I love this, my dear. You make me feel this way at times. I would so love to gather amongst you all. So very much. Honestly.
Then Meetis looked down on the ground in despair. What's wrong, Meetis?
It's Dryden. He wants to join me. I really don't want him to come. It does so spoil the fun.
Then Dryden walked through a portal door, passing through the bedroom of Meetis's home.
I suppose you're already considering to invite me to the gathering this evening? Yes, of course, Dryden. It's just that I fancy the Cornish woman. Would it be possible for you to attend to your own affairs as I speak with her? Oh, you don't know. She is already betrothed to another. Oh, how can this be? I just met her this evening. Now, don't be jealous, Meetis. She is a simple soul. You would have little in common with her. She still sleeps with her dolls. She seemed to be a woman, not a child. Yes, a woman indeed, but prone to juvenile thinking. She was too coddled and not good for much else than her finely porcelain appearance. I see. Oh, I've lost all purpose of life now. My heart was so set on an amorous affair. I still believe you don't understand. She's of a simple mind, limited in her thinking. It would be unseemly to taint her. Oh, I see. I shall move on. I do need something else to make me feel alive beyond the widow across the street. She is lovely, but I don't feel the connection to her. It's not her appearance. She looks young and many fancy her. But I know her sadness. It weakens me a bit. I feel like I want to grow old. Meetis, maybe a trip to my home would do you a bit of good. Besides, you get too entangled in the affairs of humans. Let them find their own mates. Don't tamper with their destiny. Come now, or we shall be late. We have to correct something. An intruder is in our midst, and I fear they dangled that porcelain doll to entice and entangle you with their affairs. It is the beast, the draconian, who waits behind her. Ah, yes, the draconian father. Quite right. They are coming in swarms above and below. We must observe and read their intentions. Very well. Allow me to find the attire of a gentleman. No need. Here, I brought the finest of the finest. Try this on. Oh, very well.
It's a song.
He wanders over to get his guitar. Here comes Clark. Oh, ow, ow, oh. Yes, I don't moan about it much, but when it hurts, it hurts.
Oh, injury.
Oh, hang on. Some of those notes hurt. Let's not do that one then. Shirts and silks do all the tricks. I fancy my fine clothing and dance a bit. A shoe and a candle lit. I'll dance until all will know me. Twirl and dance. I'll find romance and still see the dark ones going. They will reveal what I must feel. A plan or their sense or knowing. Come now, we must be off. Yes, straight away. So, our transmissions for today. Yeah, poor old Meetis.
Not complete.
He was a little sad, wasn't he?
Yeah.
A little put, you know. He's every man. You know, I get him. So now, let me see if I can find the songs that you got me. What was the name of that band? Yappo. There we go. Your bed smells like cigarettes.
Are you ready?
Okay, so we back?
Yep.
All right, we're back, and we have some wonderful guests today. We have Keith Roberts joining us from Revolution Radio and Ground Control Show. And we have Conrad visiting us again, William Conrad Zeiderveld, and Viking. So, hello everyone, how are you today?
Very well, Jessica. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Keith. I've been on your show a few times. I love the idea of having you here and joining me today.
Well, it's an honor to be invited on your wonderful show.
So, I thought we could talk a little bit of, maybe you guys have something that you want to share in particular regarding something in consciousness or a topic in particular that you feel very strongly about. And we're just going to go around and, I'll start with you, Keith. Why don't you share with us your thoughts for today and what you want to say to the audience?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is to let go of fear. Fear impedes us from loving, and it's understandable and it's natural to have anxiety and fears because we're facing a lot of challenges. Many of us are concerned about having enough wherewithal to keep a roof over our head and feed ourselves and take care of our loved ones. Many of us have fear about the direction things are going and events that are happening. I would suggest that we can be aware of those fears, but then to let them pass through us and let go of them. And embrace the love and creative energy that I think it's really time to share this. I think this is we have a wonderful opportunity to create a very positive outcome in the situation we're in, and it requires us stepping up to the plate. It requires us raising our consciousness and really embracing the love and the power of love that we can share with each other. That's my message.
That's wonderful. And tell us a little bit about your show, Keith, so people know when to listen in and how they can join you. It's a late night talk for the East Coast, but I think it's a little earlier elsewhere.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's 9:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for West Coast listeners. So it's fairly, it's after dinner and kind of a nice time. It's midnight Eastern Time, and it's on Thursday nights is a guest-oriented show, and then Sunday nights at the same time slot, I do just an open roundtable, and our wonderful fellow guests here, Viking and Conrad, quite often join me, actually almost every week. I have one or both of them with us, and we just, between with the Viking and Conrad's wonderful energy, it's just a very, very amped up show, and I often can't sleep after it because we just get into such levels of sharing the exciting time that we're in and the wonderful opportunities we have. So those are my two shows, and they are of course on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and you can also go directly to them on my website, keithaz.com, keithaz.com. And there's a blue button on the front page that says click here, and that takes you right to Revolution Radio. And of course my shows are both on Studio A.
Okay, wonderful. And I know that so what do you think, what's on your mind today, Viking? Viking, you there?
Yeah, I'm up mute. What's on my mind? While we were off air, I kind of felt like you put together a force here a force to be reckoned with on your current panel here. We got a lot of talented people, and what it brought to mind was that what Rhodan was saying today in the transmissions, where we have to do our work very privately and very much in a singularity. We have to come to terms and come to our truths, and I feel there are a lot of intrinsic truths out there, but what we assemble and put together as our own truth is very unique. But once we come to this platform of understanding, and once we really have come to designate our current perspective of reality being one of love, as he also pointed out, love, and being able to manifest our truth, which is the essence of who we are and why we're here. It's remembering as he was pointing out, the molecules of this universe which hold our essence. I feel then it's important to gather, at that point, because it's through sharing this information that solidifies and gives it credence. And we call this a celebration. We celebrate life. And once we start to celebrate life with our peers and family and friends that truly understand us without judgment, truly understand us and see us for who we are without trying to control or manipulate us, we truly can accept us and see us in a nurturing fashion. These are the people we need to start gathering with and start co-creating our current expression of life. It's like a big canvas, and we're all adding to this montage of excellence and beauty. So that's currently what I'm working with.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And I agree. Yeah, Rhodan had a different message, but not really. I mean, he's always looking out for us and trying to support us in our personal journeys and helping us to raise the consciousness globally. So, Conrad, what would you like to share today?
Well, I was picking up on what Keith said about fear, and over the years, I've kind of developed this attitude of confidence that things are going to work out and that I'm moving forward, and the people that I know are moving forward in their own time. And so, less and less I seem to be thinking about things in terms of fear, more now just creating the reality that I want to see, or creating the work I want to do, or creating the relationships I want. And the other thing about networking with people that are like mine, in a small town in the Midwest, there's lots of people that network on various subjects, but more subjects like we talk about here, consciousness. A lot of that now happens online, and I really feel supported by the different people that I exchange information with, and all the fabulous things that are posting every single day on YouTube, on channels I subscribe to, or other individuals like ourselves, which actually take the time to post on YouTube. We share information here on radio programs, but it feels like a whole community of support, if you know what I mean.
It does, and I'm looking at the chat room right now, and we really have a great group here, and there's so many people that I feel, I mean, they're learning, they're growing, they're contributing. We're not really teaching them anything. There's a lot of stuff that they already know, and they're here to support us and share their presence. And they already said some wonderful things about what you had to say, Keith and Viking and Conrad. I mean, they're enjoying the conversation here. So, and I wish we could almost get everybody in here. You know what I mean, Keith? That's kind of your concept, is just let everyone come in and say something and express how they feel, because we're going to get pieces of wisdom from each and every person that's involved.
We each have a gift to share. We each have a purpose here. And I really have a very inclusive attitude. I'll have very divergent guests on who don't like each other. I mean, not on the same night. It's not like I try to do that. But on one week I had somebody who had a real socialist, kind of almost communist bent, and the following week I had somebody that was more of a national socialist, if you understand what that means. I really liked what Conrad, what you said. It's about a level of having trust. The confidence you feel is that you trust that it's okay. We are immortal beings. We never truly die. So this shadow play that we find ourselves in, if we take responsibility for co-creating it, it can really ameliorate the feelings of anxiety and fear with all the assaults we're seeing from all different sides. And then that gives us a level of trust that we can affect the change that we want to see and manifest the reality that we so richly deserve, and understand the difference, because we've been through all these different incarnations, which I feel, and I know many others do. Viking has expressed this, and I think Conrad would, and yourself may agree. We really are at a culmination point of spiritual evolution. And so I think that's why we're really seeing the escalation, both in the light that's coming in and those that prefer the status quo, to try to hold back from embracing that. But I think it's too late for them. I think, in a sense, we've already reached that goal, and it's just a matter of it unfolding now. as the old ideas that don't work anymore slowly dissolve of their own inertia.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said, I think it's an interesting way of looking at things, and you have people that are in polar opposites coming on your show, and and everyone needs to have a voice, even if, their voice is out of anger, frustration, maybe it's a way of getting attention by swinging wildly from one extreme to another. But ultimately, we want to try to get everyone on board where they feel like they're heard, and even maybe consider the group and what they're doing. But if they are constantly excluded from the group, it creates and retains this isolation. Now, Rhodan was talking about the singularity, as Viking said, where we're doing our own self-journeys. But after we've done our self-journey, then it's time to return to the group and cohabitate, to, get along with everyone and understand that their perspective may provide some insight, and even the extreme perspectives sometimes have some value in it that was not included in a generic concept of or a possibility of a universal solution. So sometimes the extreme ideas do lend to other truths that were not originally considered. Anyone want to speak on that?
We have to look at all the different colors, have the full spectrum. I had a wonderful guest on last week, Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright, and one of the things she said that really struck me, I was aware of, I get some heat on my show, and they're saying, how come you don't ask the hard questions? And you're supposed to, well, I think I do ask pretty good questions, but I'm not confrontational. I don't think that serves anybody. And the one thing she said was, I've had enough of the struggle and all this. I want to have some fun now. And that's kind of the atmosphere I try to generate on my show. Just an exciting exploration of these different ideas with a focus on raising our consciousness and connecting with really the galactic neighborhood that we're in, and the different angelic and highly developed extraterrestrial beings.
Absolutely. Viking, what do you have to say about along these lines?
Well, first off, I just want to share the fact that you mentioned Patty today. Well, Keith has been having Patty on his show. Is she coming up again, Keith?
She will be my guest next week, and it will be just her.
Okay, because Jessica mentioned Patty on your show today, so I just want to bring that relationship here. That she'll be on Keith's show next Thursday at 9:00 on Revolution. But as far as my thoughts along these lines, going back again to Rhodan, he had pointed out these various paths that we embark on, and when you're talking about fear and trying to gain trust, which is the contrast. Through fear, we can only come to terms with fear through a strength and understanding and trust. And this is not a light switch. This is very important to understand. This is not a flick of a switch here. As Rhodan was pointing out, it is a process. It is a process that takes time. Like anything, it is a reconfiguration, design, it is almost starting from scratch in some cases where we have to redefine who we are in the presence of trust. But as I've spent about 2 years in therapy, my therapist would tell me, when you're investing yourself, don't go all in, because that's kind of the problem we have, is that we pull back and we go all in, pull back and go all in, and then we get damaged and hurt in this process. But she said, invest a penny. If you have $1, invest a penny and see how that plays out, and then double down and double down. So you're reintegrating yourself into this process of trust, because then who is it that you trust? Well, ultimately you are trusting yourself in trusting in your authority in situations of decisions, because it's not the person that burnt you, it was the decision that you made around that person by inviting him into your life and then getting burnt. So it's really coming to some forgiveness, reintegrating your sense of being, and reestablishing your trust in life.
Beautiful. Conrad?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I seem to have this feeling I'm moving forward, and I'm doing it on various different levels, as we all are. And for instance, I'm taking a course in social organization for nonprofit organizations. So it's kind of like a social studies kind of area. Then I'm taking my real estate license for North Dakota, because I was previously in Hawaii where I had a license I have to reset for the broker's test here. And so I'm reviewing that. And then I'm taking a programming course that allows me to operate a tabletop printer or a house printer to print larger objects. And it's a whole new area. It's like a different software program. So any new thing that you haven't done before, you have to start making really simple things like designing a salt shaker, really basic. Then eventually you can do something bigger. But I see all these kind of integrating with that same confidence. I didn't have the confidence that this was going to manifest. I probably wouldn't have the self-starting energy to put in to be taking 3 different full-time courses at the same time. And then I'm still, you always have the level of what's happening in your life, or things that you're doing for your job, or things you're doing in your community, or different people that you meet with in small groups to help put organizational things in your community together to work towards your goal. So it's really, I think everybody that's doing something has all these different facets of their life, and you really do need the confidence that you're moving forward, and you see little steps that happen in the result. So you see the goal, but it's kind of like you just envision it and just move forward, and it all seems to just, come into place. There'll be issues that everybody has issues that come up, but if an issue comes up, it's something for your learning. That's the way I look at it. So you deal with that issue, it resolves, and then you're still moving forward. So that's kind of how I look at the process.
I think it is, and we're all teaching each other. We're all bringing a piece of information, and that's creating the whole. And I always see that there's little something missing there, and it's just this, a couple people arrive and that fills in the gaps, and we start expanding on what we know. It's creating this wonderful community. I think that a lot of people, particularly of this mindset that we're in here at Will Spirit Radio, has kind of created a safe, not just safe, but wonderful place of expression that is unique and unlike any other location. And that's why we tell people, please support what's going on here, because it keeps it going. It keeps everyone, keeps the engine rolling. And meanwhile, we have this forum and we have this outreach of an international group of people that are gathering here at this time, and the most crucial time probably in the history of humanity. We're about to embark on something really wonderful, and even though it seems very grim at times, there is always the other aspect, or the contrast of it, where within some of the most dire times of our history, we've risen up, and we can be successful in understanding what we need to learn, and then expanding to that next level. It pushes us to that next level in a very graceful way. So, anyone else want to jump on that idea?
It really is a tremendous time of connecting. We have this wonderful forum. The internet is kind of like the internal dialogue of the entire planet. And yet we're going a level beyond that. We're connecting at a spiritual telepathic level, a morphogenetic field level, where this tremendous fun and excitement of the new reality we are in the process of grounding and bringing into manifestation on this planet. I'm tremendously excited. I get people telling me, no, it's over, forget about it. The New World Order's won. We're all slaves, and I say, I don't buy that for a second. I feel I am as sensitive as everybody on this panel is. Really, the entire audience is. Everybody is psychic. Everybody has sensitivities. And that is a muscle that you can flex and develop. And so I strongly encourage people to do their own inner work, their own meditation, their own quieting of the mind. And the creative arts are a wonderful way to do that as well. They take you to that childlike state of being in the zone of pure creativity. And this is where we can manifest, and this is where we forget about all the things that want to impinge in our mind and take our time away. Time is perhaps our most valuable asset that we have, and so let's use it now. And even the little things you do for each other can mean so much. When you transition from this plane and look back, instead of you're winning some big award, you might look back and say, well, I helped somebody fix a flat tire back then, and it really, that was more important to me than my biggest accomplishment. I mean, who knows? I don't know how that'll play out. But the point is, those little kindnesses and the support of each other, can mean so much. But really getting in that zone of excitement and that joy of just being, that state of being, where the energy that you run, I mean, we take nourishment from food, but we also take nourishment from the higher levels. The amount of energy our bodies express is greater than the sum of the nutritional elements that we ingest, in my viewpoint. So this is a level where you can enter into that excitement that really energizes your body and makes it so easy to function and feel really positive. And that energy radiates out to the furthest reaches of the universe. And at this point, I feel that those waves are reflecting back, like throwing a stone in the pond. It creates these ripples that go out, and then they come back in this interference pattern, which is a real platform on which we can lift ourselves, and in turn that lifts each other up. You can't change anybody else, but as you change yourself, you show them by example the space they can enter into if they so choose. And the majority of people will. Some people are are a little stuck, and they have to find their own answers. It's not like we can cause them to shift, but as we set the example, then we show them a path where they, if they so choose, can follow.
That's right. Viking.
What's interesting here, and what I've been really starting to become more aware of, is that there's as much ugly, dark, horrific news out there as there is good news. It's about split down the middle. You get to a point where you start to wake up and really see that the whole thing's a charade. You start to understand that there's a lot of false flags and a lot of control mechanisms that are tugging your fear and tugging your insecurity. When you start to realize and start to break away from this control, this mind control, and this manipulation of our emotional response, you start to realize that it's all out there like flags. There's a saying, throw up the flagpole and see who salutes. Well, if you're saluting at all these dark flags and all these cabal actions, then that's something you have to be aware of, that they're tugging on an aspect of you that you have yet to resolve. You're still buying into it. They're throwing up the flagpole. You're saluting with your anger, with your judgment, with your fear, with your apprehension. That's you saluting. It's not, you can't blame them. they're doing what they're doing. They are of the dark. That's what they do. The fault lies with you if you're saluting their actions. You have choice. We start saluting, the peace. Start saluting the peace of. Start saluting the peace and prosperity. You start saluting humanity and mankind and humankind and womankind and goddess and God and children and just all this this beauty that's before us here. That's what will manifest, and it takes all of us making that commitment here. It really is where you are invested. And if you find yourself in desperations because you're still desperate, and this is your challenge is to get through it. You find yourself in fears because you still have fear, and this is your challenge. You got to get through it. You find yourself in misappropriation of your behaviors because you're still misappropriating your behavior, and we need to start taking ownership. This is what we're down to saying. You got to go within and find this disturbance in the force, and then find your equilibrium, find your truth, as Keith had pointed out. Find your mystery and your magic that you can participate in, and forget about healing. Healing should be a byproduct. By reintegrating yourself in the higher aspect of who you are, you will be able to confront your challenges, move forward in a very positive way. Forget the fact that there is PTSD. Just start focusing in a higher direction of love and light, and healing becomes a byproduct. You will be on your way.
I'd like to comment if I could. That is so true, Viking. What we focus our intention on is what we manifest. In other words, what we look at, what we choose to pay attention to is what we manifest. Each and every one of us has the ability to control our mental and emotional states. Each and every one of us can control our internal dialogue instead of using things like, oh, I can't do this, when you're thinking, oh, that'll never, forget about all that stuff. Say, I will, and say, I have it already. Just visualize that in your mind, already being there. And my movement is occupy yourself.
That's right. That's a good mentality. So we're doing our own self-work, and then we're also learning that all of our imperfections and aspects of ourselves that we're working on, that we can learn to be more understanding of those around us, and be in that place of harmony. Because, not everyone's supposed to think exactly like us. We're supposed to have our individuality, but also be open. And that's the one thing that I think JP has talked a lot about is accepting others and the perspective of what they bring to the table. And I always love what Viking and Keith and Conrad, you guys are wonderful, and bringing up your perspectives as well, and helping everyone just sort of work through their stuff. Because once we get through the stuff, then there's not much more to say than to just embrace one another and say that we get it. And even if we don't agree, we can always gravitate towards those that we do, and kind of, but overall, we're looking at the general population that needs to begin remembering who they are and why they're here. And if we don't have it together in our group, then it's hard for them to awaken, because we're still focused on the tediousness of trying to decipher who's in our specific group. And there's no such thing. It's it's more of an exchange of information and not segmenting. So we're learning the whole process. Keith, I want to ask you briefly. So you have you're an accomplished musician. Is that correct? It's something that I don't know if everyone knows about that with you.
Well, I've been playing guitar a long time, and when I try to rate myself, I kind of go to realizing I'm on a scale that goes from 0 to infinity. So I can say I'm on there somewhere, and I've opened for some big names and had a little bit of radio play and some minor success. But then I'll hear somebody else and go, I am not even close to being very good. But I am in the process of, creating music. I will have, follow keithaz.com. I'll, be posting, as I get some music complete, some of my new music I've been working on so people can check it out. And it's kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe cosmic rock might be but I have influence of classical and jazz and stuff like that. So.
Well, you know what, Keith? I mean, we would love it if you want to give us a little sample. And,
I'm not able to right now. I just not set. I've got a new kitty, and so I'm organizing the place for her. So I really can't pick up my guitar. I just set up a big kitty. You know how they have those climbing things on them. She actually just jumped up as we were talking, and so she can sit next to me while I'm at the computer.
You know what that means?
What's
that?
That
means you're going to have to come on the show again to sing
I know.
for us.
I know. I realize
right.
that. I realize I have to do that. It's not even an option.
Wonderful. I just want to share with everyone, White Lizzie gave me a really good quote last week, and she's in the chat room. And she said, Jessica, there is no beginning and no end. There is only eternal flow of consciousness and love. We are eternal souls on a journey of knowledge. It's the second time, White Lizzie. I'm starting to see you as a poet here. You're doing an awesome job. Thank you for sharing. And Conrad, I'd like you to share with us again, anything that's on your mind and related to the conversation at hand.
Well, I see the transition we're going through now as one with a path that continues going forward into the future. And it will be a lot of different humanitarian projects that will be establishing and moving forward in all different areas, in areas of health and areas of, disseminating music and helping up and coming artists. I mean, if you can imagine an area, there'll be a humanitarian project or many humanitarian projects that will be people's contributions, and they won't necessarily be part of the matrix economic model. It's like I've been around here for 7 decades, and so I'm looking at still being here till my 13th decade. Now, I might set a date at that point to go further, but right now that's how I see continuing going forward. And the last major project that I put together was one where you write a grant and then it gets funded, and it was a program for 10 years. So it's gone on now. It's actually in its 11th year, even though the funding was for 10 years. It's still going forward, and I had the benefit of watching how that happened and what elements, the element of politics that that slowed different actions down that could have moved forward with more freedom if there's more coherentness. But it was a successful program, and it just got approved for an 11th year now. And I didn't write myself into the project because I didn't do it to be creating a job. I did it to get a program started that would work in the community, and I'd be able to observe how it went and learn from. And so now I'm working on a humanitarian project for 100 years. And it takes 20% of the goals of that 10-year project. That project was for one town. The project I'm working on now is for to serve 400 towns, the smaller of the towns in North and South Dakota. So that's why I called it the Dakota Project, because it's kind of for a 2-state area. However, my funding source and the guidelines for the setting up humanitarian projects says scale it up so you can do the most good. So if I'm taking the amount of nonprofit funds that I would be using for 2 states, and there's 50 states, now I have a figure which has a few more zeros behind it, and I'm looking at how to set, and I actually am setting up a program of win-win situations so that we're reaching out into the community in all these little towns. So every series of towns in a certain state would have 2 central people working there that live in that area. And they would be presenting information on what the project does so people can warm up to it, and finding specific people that we're going to help to create either jobs or housing or abundance. So it's sort of a threefold program to change the matrix model to one of abundance, do that in a concrete way, helping specific families or single people, and then also in the process create work and jobs around those areas that we're helping with, because anytime you do something, you need more people who aren't necessary. They wouldn't be employees of the project. They would be people in the community that would gain by getting jobs or activities to do for hire. So you envision this, and it actually is taking place, because there's a program that went for 10 years already, is even without my working in the project, it's going forward as it was planned. And now I'm writing myself in this time for the median salary is local to this area. But I really don't have any irons in the fire as far as economics. It's a project where you're putting something forward, and it's going to move forward in the community with guidance. Then other people, from what 2 of us did to start it, the next 12 people would have that to go by. They would move in their individual areas, and it would blossom out into the entire area of our country here, if we're North America centric or USA centric.
You know, Conrad, I would love to, devote one of the shows to a discussion of building a community and the things that are necessary for that, and if create models and maybe even use the private Facebook group as a forum where people can write down ideas that they would like to implement and like to see in a community, starting with whether it's like affordable housing but well built, centered around natural surroundings, free energy. I don't know if it's fully off grid or however that would work, but working with the natural elements of wind and solar and other technologies that would make it a beautiful community, and also self-contained, where people can pick up a bicycle and get to wherever they need to go to that next place. So we're running out of time right now, and I just wanted to prepare everyone, say thank you to everyone for being on the show, and I encourage everyone to put something in Facebook of what is your idea of a good community. Thank you. Thank you, JP. We know that the show's ending. Thank you, Keith, so much for joining us today. Visit Keith on Revolution Radio and Ground Control. Thank you, Viking, and thank you, Conrad.
We have a council meeting this Thursday, 1 o'clock.
Oh, that's right. Council meeting this Thursday. Don't miss it on Wolf Spirit Radio. It's 4 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.
We came from the future by way of past. I bought my ticket for the 15th century. We started moving through a hole in history.